We Have Issues is a weekly podcast full of reviews of comics and oversharing. We use grown-up language to make very childish jokes. You can find the show at wehaveissues.net, as well as anywhere else where average to not too bad podcasts can be found. Positive energy.
No, it's positive energy.
Yeah, it is positive energy. I feel like I'm quashing your enthusiasm.
You are. I'm not going to be happy for the whole episode now. I'm going to be really fucking mellow.
Is it
coming off a high now, aren't I?
I'm just waiting for us to start at this point.
Oh, we've probably already started, John. If you'd ever listened to the podcast, you'd know that
I can never
sometimes...
tell where the point is. He just hits record at a random point and
we
starts
start talking
going.
about really random shit, and then
basically the
record.
podcast kicks off with half a line of somebody going, and then my dad threw his cock at the person, and it all went round from there.
That's what it's going to start with now.
When
then my dad threw his cock.
When he says somebody, he normally means you, Jessie. It's quite often something you've said.
I'm not saying anything about cocks.
No, John definitely is talking about his dad's cock. So this is We Have Issues. Welcome, listener. I'm Nick. I'm
John.
always here. That's John. Yeah, sorry, John. I talked over your introduction.
I also talked over yours. It happens.
I've broken the podcast. Oh no!
We have to re-record this now.
And that's Jessie, listener. We were talking about Podcraft just before the podcast. One thing you might have noticed in the past when Jessie and John have been on the podcast is they are way more enthusiastic about comics than I am.
This still feels like a telling off.
Isn't a telling off.
You've literally just told me I talk about cocks and I'm way too enthusiastic.
Just because you are so young does not mean everything I say is a telling off.
Okay, so that's the first.
Sorry, Dad.
That's the mention. No, and so if we are all tiptoeing around each other a little bit, it's because I thought I was offering helpful direction, and I've broken the podcast. I've broken it, and I'm sorry. Luckily, we don't have that many comics to talk about this week, so it should be okay.
It'll be short and sweet.
Yeah,
like me.
Yeah, luckily. You're taller than I am. I think you're taller than John is as well.
Yeah,
is John taller than me?
No, I think I'm shorter than you.
You're going to be really excited for LSCC though, because I just bought special shoes for it, and I'm about 6'1" in them.
What does special shoes mean?
Are we talking like
they're
the
like
sort
platforms?
Oh, okay, they're not like heels.
They're heels and platforms.
I think platforms are kind of a continuum.
Yeah.
They're like heels and a continuum of heels.
Black Canary.
You're going as Black Canary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means I get to wear a swimming suit, essentially.
What I don't understand...
Fishnet tights.
Well, I didn't know you were going cosplay. Yeah. I know Laura's going as Aaron Sung.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
And then Scott's going as Stark from Farscape.
Oh, he's creepy. So he's hiding most of his face.
Yeah. I don't know what the mask is like. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen their costumes, actually.
I saw bits of them. I saw like parts of the jacket the last time we were there, and she tried to sort of kill us all with glue.
I don't think people talk about Farscape enough.
I think it was a very, very good show, and I'm really upset that it just got like swept over.
I always keep trying to watch it and never being able to get into it, but everyone is recommending that I should watch it, and it is on Netflix now. So
because it's actually really good writing. It's surprising really good at writing. I'm not usually this happy with the show.
It's really good. I think it was long arc television at a time that people weren't really used to it. I just want to...
it was about the same sort of time as Babylon 5, which was kind of what started... I say what started that. All Babylon 5 did was took the Lord of the Rings and set it in space. But basically, it was a very... that was... Babylon 5 was my first real experience of actual what is now done everywhere, like novelised television effectively.
And I think that in Farscape they did it almost to a fault though, because by the second or third series, if you stepped into one episode and you didn't know what had happened before that, you were literally screwed. They didn't have episode of the week episodes after a certain point.
The thing I remember about Farscape was the DVD box sets used to cost a ton of money.
I don't think that helped.
Also, the other thing was, even though I never watched it, what I have seen of it, I think it looked very high quality. You could see why the box sets cost more, maybe because it was clearly an expensive show to manufacture.
Cost a shitload to make.
Yeah, I was about to make that point.
The puppets and the Muppets, like Sesame Street in space or whatever it was doing, but it was a really, really well-made show. It looked really, really expensive, and it looked really high quality, and from everything everyone has said, the writing was pretty much the same. So, I don't know, maybe I'll give it a go.
Oh, you mean you haven't seen it?
No, I've never seen Farscape at all, but it's on Netflix now, so I'm like, maybe I should watch that.
It was almost where SG1 was maybe a bit formulaic, which kept the cost down and stuff. Farscape, it was almost to a fault. Really not. It was so weird.
Yeah,
it was very good.
It wasn't confusing weird, but it was like, I don't know where this was going at all.
It did get a bit confusing weird at times.
Are we also talking like Lex?
A little bit.
Do you remember Lex?
It was less rude than Lex, but it was basically the same story. Living ship, bunch of people on it.
That was basically why I watched Lex, because it was effectively sort of sci-fi FHM.
It was less European than Lex.
That's a very...
I've never seen Lex.
Make it that way you will.
It's a very odd sci-fi show. The episodes are about 2 hours long each, and it's just a bit mental, and it's got the best haircuts you've ever seen. Almost better than Babylon 5.
There was an 18 certificate Farscape box set, but it was just because something gory happened in one of the episodes. But the first DVD, the first episode of SG1, there was a cut of that episode that had proper full frontal lady nudity.
Oh, so people were like
the DVD
space
went
titties.
Went out at 18 certificate. I think it was human titties, but in space.
So space titties.
Yeah.
Like
so I don't think that kind of helped.
Gravity.
They didn't really do anything with the gravity in the thing. I don't.
We usually disagree on things. I just realised when it comes to
we quite often do.
Yeah, it's strange.
I think it's an age thing. That's too.
Is it? Is it?
I think it might be. Yeah. I'm not saying that you're wrong because you're younger, or I'm right because I'm older, or I'm right. I'm just saying I think it's probably.
Is it because I'm a woman as well?
No, apparently I'm contrary. I've been told, and I argue with people online a little bit.
Do you?
Apparently that's the thing that happens. I just want to mention in passing, because the story is only. The news has only just come out about an hour before we started recording, but Terry Pratchett's died. That's very sad news. I think he has died from a condition because of his Alzheimer's, or I'm not a clinician. I don't know. I spent a lot of time reading Terry Pratchett books when I was younger. Not so much in recent years. But obviously a lot of people are very upset, and it is very sad news. The 3 tweets with which his account closed out were absolutely amazing. So there are going to be lots of people doing lots of quoting and talking about Terry Pratchett on social media over the next few days. But I just suggest that if you cared about Terry Pratchett, or if you don't know anything about him but have just heard the news, go and find those last 3 tweets, because they're really good. Or last 2 tweets. It's just really good. And his daughter retweeted them, and that was her only comment up to a point. And his daughter writes video games.
Yeah, she did a TED Talk.
And she wrote the most recent Tomb Raider game. So really
good stuff.
So writing is a family thing. So yes.
They're almost like the Coppolas of the writing world. No?
The Coppolas. I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it said out loud before.
Why?
I don't think.
Did I pronounce that wrong?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
I pronounced it Coppola.
You probably pronounced it right, Jessie.
Coppola.
To be fair, you could have. You're more likely to have pronounced it right than I am. I just.
Oh, fuck it. Whatever.
Look. Okay. Right. Even if you got it wrong, every other name that you have corrected our pronunciation on, you've been right. So I think you're allowed to get the odd one wrong. I think you might be wrong on this one, but that's okay.
Brilliant.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm forever getting stuff wrong, so it doesn't matter.
Sorry, speaking of getting names wrong, I'm just looking at the names on this comic. Yeah, we're not going to get all 3 of those right in a go, are we?
See, I was very confident that I knew how to pronounce Chip's name.
His name's
But
Chip. It's not difficult.
But his second name. But then I found out that's not his actual name, so that my pronunciation will not hold valid.
Zdarsky, Quinones, and Renzi. That's how I'd pronounce those names.
I would have gone Renzi.
I'm trying to be.
It's probably Renzi. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we ruin you comedic?
No. I ruined it by it not being funny. That was the problem. It wasn't a very good joke. Shall we talk about comics? I feel like I allowed the conversation to get out of control. The problem with me trying to be good at directing podcasts, listener, and the guys, is that quite often it's me who does the derailing and the one who insists on going on about something.
And you're just not a very good director.
I'm really not a very good. It's unfair, really, for me to say to John. For me to give John a hard time about this, because quite often the reason we've ended up talking lots about stuff is I've brought up something that I know. I don't do it on purpose. I didn't deliberately bring up Transformers in several of the podcasts we do together, just so that at some point in the future I could say, look, we don't have to have a 20-minute conversation.
Well, the thing about Transformers is
something about Simon Furman, right? There's something about Simon Furman.
It'll all be about Simon Furman.
Okay, good. John, you go first.
All right. First comic for this week is Amazing Spider-Man, issue 16, with Pearl at Parker Industries. Sorry,
it says on the front.
The way they've done it on the front in a sort of 1930s serial way looks quite good. Basically, it's the first issue since the end of Spider-Verse, which I haven't been reading because I've got the hardback on pre-order, but basically going in, Peter's returned and he's lacking a bit of life force thanks to Morlan. So at the beginning of the issue, Peter finds himself fighting the iguana and he's just not as good as he used to be, but he's still pretty good because he's Spider-Man, obviously. And then
he's the Spider-Man.
Then he basically has to go and do a presentation for Parker Industries on a prison that he's been building. They've actually split the issue in two as well. There is a Spider-Man story, and then there is also the first part of a Black Cat story called Repossession. And basically, I think they're starting to set up the Black Cat as a bit more due to events in Superior Spider-Man, where Otto may have treated Felicia Hardy a little badly. She's kind of
fucked her over.
Decided, I've had enough of this now. I'm not being taken for a ride. And basically, they're doing a lot of sort of building her reputation. She's starting to get interesting. Not that she ever wasn't before, but she's becoming more of a central focus. And it's also interesting because she'll turn up in another book that we'll be talking about shortly. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man.
Very professional.
Is very good. It's a nice jumping on point here, I think, because Spider-Verse has just ended, and everything has sort of managed to be relatively contained in its good. This is the usual sort of Dan Slott, and
is it the same creative team for both stories?
I believe so, yeah. It feels like it, it looks like it, but no, it's a very good book. However, I am more interested this month because Silver Surfer's come out, which is also by Dan Slott with art by Mike Allred, and I think colours by Laura Allred.
Which issue is that?
Issue 10.
I loved the previous part of that story. I don't know how they're going to get out of the fix they're in.
To be fair, they get out of the fix. This is the thing. The issue I have with the Silver Surfer is that Marvel have got Dan Slott writing 2 Spider books a month. Basically, and Silver Surfer is coming out. I think the last issue was January. The issue before that was November. We're talking about 3 months.
Isn't that
3 months
though?
I don't know actually, but it feels it's a real problem. I love Mike Allred's art. I really do. I think it perfectly suits it. And the thing is, effectively, Dan Slott's Silver Surfer is just Doctor Who fanfic. Effectively, but in the Marvel universe, and it's great. I really like it. I love the relationship between Dawn Greenwood and the Silver Surfer, and Michael Allred's art is always interesting. The way they get out of that fix from last issue is very clever. At first I was like, oh, that's a bit of a really simple way to get out of this. And then the story throws in a twist quite late on in the game, and it has a really interesting impact on the book and completely changes the dynamic of it. And the thing is, I don't want to have to wait another 2 to 3 months for the next issue. I just want it next month.
Just read it out of sync like I do. I think I read the previous part of that story about 2 days ago. Yeah, so it's fine. Get behind on your comic reading and everything will sort itself out.
I do that though. I have certain books that I just leave for months at a time, and then I catch up on them all, and then they get cancelled the next month. It is
really difficult to do that with Silver Surfer as well, because it's so good, isn't it? And
the thing is, I think Michael Allred's art really adds. It's kind of like, it feels like a Slott book in terms of the writing, but the way that Michael Allred just manages to draw everything, and it just looks so fucking weird, but it's great. It's what really makes the book worth reading. And it's like, I remember the first issue when they went to that weird sort of planet, and it was just a double-page spread he did of the planet, and it was just this big round planet with all these buildings sticking up. It was great.
Oh, the Imperium or whatever it's called.
And at that point I was like, right, I'm just going to keep buying this now, and I love it, but it's just having to wait so long.
It's weird because on the one hand it's very much a Mike Allred book. Like, Dan Slott's giving Mike Allred the writing isn't like Amazing Spider-Man, because he's specifically writing stuff that he knows Mike Allred will draw really well and would probably be drawing but off by himself in his sketchbooks or whatever. But at the same time, that Doctor Who thing is pure. That's Dan Slott's.
It's Dan's obsession. It's Dan Slott's obsession.
The relationship between the Silver Surfer and
Dawn Greenwood
is entirely his thing. That's what he's doing. So there's loads of other stuff that's very Allred infused, but then I like it.
That's what I like about this issue in particular, is they kind of take the character of Dawn Greenwood and effectively Slott just scales her up a bit, and it's just like, oh, okay. Because for a while I was sort of like, well, is she just going to follow him around the universe like some sort of lovesick schoolgirl? And actually, this is the issue where I kind of thought, no, she's like, he's been developing her, but sometimes it feels like, oh, well, the book's Silver Surfer, so it's about the surfer. And actually, no, Dawn Greenwood is always there being developed, and she's a really interesting character. There was one scene in particular in, I think, one of the earlier issues that I just thought was brilliant, where the Silver takes Dawn Greenwood back to Earth, and her twin sister runs out of the house, and I was like, oh, you're back, I'm so glad you're back. At which point the Silver Surfer just goes, Skrull, and punches her in the face. And I was like, that's brilliant. She's like, no, it's my twin sister. He's like, what? I didn't realise you could do that. Oh, okay.
The Silver Surfer must have met a twin before.
I don't know. Probably not of him though. But anyway, Silver Surfer.
He's met mutants
really good
before. He's not, but he's freaked
Twins
out.
Are practically mutants.
Yeah,
it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. Also,
I like it.
Noticed something else. I don't know if this is. It's just an odd thing of. In this, we actually get Dan Slott and Mike Allred, storytellers.
Yeah, so they're a bit.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed in Marvel books a bit recently, that creators are now. Oh, okay. In this case, it was Dan Slott and Christos.
So you were wrong.
Gage. No, yeah, I'm just wrong about everything except these comics. You should buy these comics.
One of my favourite, one of the only things in geekdom that I really like. One of my favourite bits of fanishness that I really like is Dan Slott's Doctor Who fandom. It's insanely positive. I mean, and he sometimes sees the show itself through slightly rose-tinted spectacles, I think, but that's cool. He's just been posting pictures of all of the... he's been posting pictures today of all of the different Doctor Who people he's met.
Oh,
like David
that's so cute.
And he's such a geek about it. It's ridiculous. It just makes me really happy. Even though I couldn't do that, I just wouldn't have to... Yeah,
I really like it when, like, creators that I like, or, like, people I really like get really fangirly over other people that I like. And it makes me so happy. Like, everyone just likes each other and everything is sunshine.
I think that's the thing that you sometimes kind of forget, that actually the people that make the things that you love are just fans themselves. And it's always quite nice because it kind of humanises them.
I think
why would you humanise my gods?
I think what you're trying to say, John, and Jessie is resisting is, aren't we all really just people in this wacky workaday world?
No.
Except Howard.
There is a superior race of people.
A superior, a master race.
A master race of sorts that are filled with creators. I try not to sound bad.
I don't even want to chase that one.
No, don't.
I was going to say there's
like there's
very
endless
dark corridors
but
in the ghettos of your mind there.
So
I'm really tired. I'm sorry.
You're doing fine. It's fine. It's okay. Don't let me have ruined you both. It's fine.
You have ruined.
We're doing okay.
If James was here, he so would have turned that into something else.
You really would have.
He's really. I mean, he's the disgusting chauvinist and a fascist and a Nazi and a monster.
A neo-Nazi of sorts, yeah.
We miss you, James. Where are you? He's at home. I know where he is. Next comic. We all got this.
Mm-hmm.
It's Howard the Duck. Exactly. I want you to. It's number one. I want you to say who did it. Jessie.
No.
It's based on characters created by Steve Gerber and Val Merrick. Just right up front now, I want to say that we're not ignorant of the potential indignities that Marvel have and general fuckery that Marvel have put Steve Gerber and I don't know about Val Merrick actually through,
mm-hmm.
but we wanted to cover this comic and read it and stuff, so we have, and that's unfortunately the world we live in. So who did it, Jessie?
It was by Chip Zdarsky. We'll go with that.
Zdarsky.
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 No,
Zdarsky.
Zdarsky.
Yeah, we'll go with that. I don't know because I don't know how to pronounce this anymore. I think it sounds better with the accent. Zdarsky. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Was that you doing Russian mafioso?
No, that was my Polish attempt at.
But you don't normally sound like that.
Yeah, I do.
Do it in your English accent.
Starsky.
Do it in your Polish accent.
Starsky.
Do it in your Bronx accent.
Starsky. That went American. It's fine.
I think James's position as the accent person might just be safe.
I'm not very good at. I can barely speak this language, let alone do accents.
James is excellent at accents. He hasn't done them that much on We Have Issues, and I hope he will do them more. I'm still
waiting for Wankula. So
yeah,
still waiting.
That's the name of the play that James is writing and trying to get put on in where is it in London where all the plays are?
The West End.
The West End. Waiting for Wankula. It's a very serious piece. It's just a one-man show.
Hashtag waiting for Wankula.
Waiting for Wankula.
I might tweet that when we get out.
So yes. So say that again. Chips.
Zdarsky.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Artist is Joe Quinones, even.
Yep.
Quinones.
Or Quinones. I'd say Quinones, but I'm culturally insensitive.
This is terrible. And colour artist Rico Renzi. Renzi? I can't. I'm dumb. Why did you ask me to do this?
Rico Renzi. I don't know. I just thought it'd be funny. It's clearly created some anxiety.
You've put me through so much by doing this.
No, it's fine. Look, nobody expects us to get people's names right, and you probably do them better than anyone else. The pressure's on, though, Jessie.
I'm never going to read anything ever out loud now.
Right, so, what's it about?
Well, if you're not familiar with Howard the Duck, which I am going to be honest, I wasn't as much as I probably should have been going into this, I was just aware that he was a talking duck.
I think that's as much as you need to know going in.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all you need to know. He is put in our world, and he is the only one that's like that. He is the only talking duck, and he's just become accustomed to our world instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not normal for him to be talking, and it's not quite normal for him to just be chilling and walking around in human clothes or anything like that. But it's accepted, and in the world that he lives in, that's not the weirdest thing that you've probably seen.
Yeah, that figures. Well, I mean, he's a private investigator in a building where the She-Hulk
has
her law firm.
Yep.
and she's got an assistant with an angry monkey.
Yeah.
So yeah, Howard kind of, I guess, people.
Speaking of which, I was so happy that they did that. I was so happy that She-Hulk popped out and then she had a little banter. Like, I was so happy, especially with She-Hulk's cancellation and everything. I was incredibly happy to see her have a sort of semi-regular cameo maybe coming up.
And for her to be in the same character that like in the same setup as she was in. I literally read the last issue of She-Hulk last night and read this today. So, and in the back of that, Charles Soule does say, I think it's him or it might be the editor, but they do say we are going to be trying to make. I'm going to try and revisit these characters as much as possible because we do still love them and stuff.
I really like that Marvel sort of took notice of the fact that maybe, okay, they've cancelled it, but people genuinely really liked She-Hulk and they liked her so much that maybe she'll be regular in this. I'd love to see more of the interaction that she has with Howard the Duck. If she punches him, that'd be great.
I don't know what would happen if a Hulk punched a duck, though. I mean,
a lawsuit.
He's like human. He's human size. He's not human size. He's not duck proportions. He's not duck.
He's sort of like...
He's short.
Yeah. See, when I'm reading this, I'm just imagining, like, Danny DeVito's voice for some reason. I'm reading everything from, like, a...
That's a good choice of voice.
Yeah, I don't know why, but everything seems so, like, especially from Always Sunny or something like that, where he's sort of like a bitter...
Cranky.
Yeah, cranky, like, older man.
It's kind of what he's always sounded like, to be fair, so...
Yeah, but it's great, and that's sort of what I went with, and they're sort of the same height, aren't they?
That's a good... Yeah, I think maybe you're right.
Yeah. Read it with Danny DeVito in mind, yeah.
I'm not sure what the status quo is. I know what the band status quo is. I'm not sure what the status quo is of Howard the Duck. I know that there have been various series.
Yeah.
Whenever the legal situations have eased off or an agreement's been reached or at some point.
What I was going to say, it's worth mentioning at this point. The Marvel collection, the Hachette hardback, Behemoth that I seem to have committed myself to. They actually did a volume that had the first 8 issues of Howard the Duck, and I think it was the really famous 16th issue, which was where Gerber was so behind that instead of submitting a script for a comic, he submitted an essay about being late writing a comic.
And it's just got art.
With random pictures in, and it's basically him sat in the middle of a diner having a conversation with Howard the Duck about why he hasn't written the latest issue of Howard the Duck, and it's fantastic. And I felt a bit guilty in a way because going into this, I was kind of taking that with me. Like, that's the Howard the Duck volume has easily been the best thing that the Marvel collection's published so far. It's brilliant, and when you actually read it and you realise that I think it was originally Howard the Duck just turned up in the middle of an issue of Man-Thing. We're not talking like he wasn't sort of like telegraphed. He literally just walks into a panel and just starts talking, and you're like,
was it giant size Man-Thing?
I think it was, yeah.
Right. And just in case the listener didn't hear that, the comic was giant-sized Man-Thing.
Get it?
Yep.
I'm not going to say it because I'll get in trouble again.
Because you're a girl, did you say?
No, because I'll get in trouble again.
For what?
Because, I'm
just
rude.
Say it.
No.
Say it.
No.
Okay.
Peer pressure.
Did you know about the? I know John knows about this, but in Todd McFarlane Spawn comics, he's known for the comics Spawn, but also for a toy line that he created, and he made the toys. And initially they were just toys based on the characters in Spawn, and then eventually they started spreading out things. But there's a character in, and they started doing large size versions of the toys, and there's a character called the Violator, and they did an 18-inch version of that toy that was called the 18-inch Violator.
18-inch, yeah.
Something like that.
It's a lot.
How big is 18 inches?
It's a lot.
I'm a man, so I don't...
So 8 inches is desirable.
That's that much.
No.
That's 6 inches, Nick.
About this. We'll go for this.
What's average?
That's average is about 6. Wait,
for an action figure.
Yeah, for an action figure, about 6. You'll
6
go with that.
Inches, which is that big.
Which one is that? Oh, the other 18-inch Violator you were talking about,
but
was it?
It was about this. I mean, off the table, it'd be Let me just off the table. It'd be about.
Do you want to stand up? Yeah.
About this. I'm not that short.
There's just one problem with this, Nick.
This
I think maybe like in the show notes you need to put like a ruler app so that they can actually work out what 18 inches is.
It's an amazing podcasting.
There we are.
18 inches is big, isn't it?
It's a lot to take.
So the 18-inch violator is a pretty big toy. But yeah, so he just turned up in panel in giant-sized man thing.
Yeah, back to
never
the
get
duck.
tired of this joke.
To be fair, it's a classic.
It's like the comic book thing of pronounce that name correctly. It's not Richard Rider, it's Dick Rider.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Every time a comic book club, like, no, you pronounced it wrong. It's Dick Rider.
But yeah, Howard the Duck just walks in off panel, and in the first issue of Howard the Duck, he meets Man Thing, and he meets some barbarian character that Man Thing was having a argument with. And then a wizard turns up and says, I need all of you to come with me to save the universe. And they go through this trans-dimensional portal, and Howard accidentally trips and falls off and disappears into nothingness and just lands in the middle of somewhere in America.
Yeah. He was Steve Gerber's way of talking about America as well.
Yeah.
What's slightly weird is that... And I want to talk about this a little bit in a second, but that this was comics at the time. This was the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So late 60s, early and mid 70s, underground comics were doing a lot of trademark fuckery, especially with Disney. You probably saw lots of pornographic Mickey Mouses and pornographic anthropomorphic. Like it was very punky. Well, not punky. It was very hippie-ish. So they were in the counterculture. There was lots of that stuff going on in comics. And Howard the Duck and everyone at Marvel was probably. It wasn't the 80s, so they hadn't all discovered cocaine. Comic people hadn't discovered cocaine. There were going to be a lot of very stoned, tripping people and I mean, I don't know, some of the most creative and artists, some of the people who do the most zoned out stuff, you'll find out they're the most straight edge people that you'd ever meet. But Howard the Duck was clearly like he was the most underground thing at Marvel, and it was very personal to Steve Gerber. And he looked just like Donald Duck. And they must have taken
I thought that was the joke.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they must have taken shit about that. There must have been issues. And what I find strange about this, quite aside from Steve Gerber's ownership of the character or not, what I find really strange about this is we're now at a point where Disney own Marvel. And they've completely changed the design of Howard the Duck. He no longer looks a thing like Donald Duck, and even the most recent series of him, I think he still kind of looked like that, didn't he? I think.
I'm not sure. I've only read the Steve Gerber one.
7 or 8 years.
One issue.
Right. Anyway, this issue. Sorry, we should talk about it. Sorry. Mm-hmm. He's fascinating. He's a fascinating character because he's so weird. He's just such an oddity. Even in this, even though he's established and he was at the end of Guardians.
He's quite precious to the fans, really.
Yeah,
people want to protect Howard the Duck,
but not enough that they wouldn't buy a comic that maybe maybe stepping over the rights of the person who created it. But that's besides the point. What's the word? We enter the story and he's already part of the status quo, isn't it? He's in the prison cell. We won't do a page-by-page thing of it. No. But he's in a prison cell. He's clearly moved to town recently, and he's set up as a private investigator. He turns up at the very end of the last issue of She-Hulk, doesn't he? He sets up his office then. Spoiler for the last issue of She-Hulk. I'm very sorry, but if you weren't already reading She-Hulk, you're part of the problem.
Exactly. Go get the trades.
Yeah. And so we... in media res, that's where we are. He's, if anything, we're not introduced to Howard. We're introduced to Tara Tam. Is that her name?
Yeah.
The tattooist who he meets, who looks like she's going to be a really interesting character. And he meets her in a cell. They're both troublemakers.
She's very punky.
Yeah.
Incredibly. She owns a tattoo shop and doesn't take shit.
I like her. She's pretty cool.
She's very exciting.
And then they take a case. The case involves the Black Cat somehow. I won't go into detail necessarily about how. and adventure and excitement and intrigue and jokes ensue. That's basically the story of the first issue, isn't it?
And Tara seems very up for everything.
Yes, she does. She's well into having met a duck and getting into scrapes. He's not the most weird person she's ever met, she says at one point. But do we like it? Was it a good comic?
I personally thought it. I don't know. Maybe where it was Chip Zdarsky, I thought because of all the I'd read his sort of, or I say read, given what he's like in the letters page on sex criminals, I was kind of hoping for something a bit more kind of edgy. This book feels very safe. However, it's still a lot of fun and it's very, very funny. His portrayal of Spider-Man, in fact, I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, there's a point towards the end of the comic that I actually was just laughing out loud at the portrayal of Spider-Man. I think it's really quite good. It's just one panel in particular had me in stitches, but I don't know. It wasn't quite what I was expecting.
You were expecting it to be more. Well, you just read the counterculture underground.
So I think maybe coming off of that, I was expecting something different. But obviously, this is Zdarsky's take.
Okay.
He gets. Thank you. He gets his really edgy stuff out on the internet. You might say he has a build up of the rude and edgy stuff. He has a build up that he kind of splurges out over the internet and in sex criminals and stuff, so that he comes to this clean and
good
wholesome.
use of word there. Yep.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm a fucking wordsmith over here.
Wholesome. I don't know. It's still good.
I expected more swearing.
You expected it to be a bit.
Yeah, I genuinely, by the character, I thought it was bitter, but I thought he was going to be a lot more like. If someone says anything, he'd be like, fuck off, and just walked off. Something like that.
You mean like with only because it's a Marvel book with the asterisks and stuff? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Even with that, I thought I knew it was going to be not as hardcore because it's Marvel, so it's not going to be anything incredibly rude and everything's still obviously censored. But I expect more swearing from Howard.
He swears a bit. I've got what's his fucking problem here.
Yeah.
You see, I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest, but I feel like it really nicely fits. For me, it fits somewhere I wasn't expecting it to, and that's with Squirrel Girl and She-Hulk and books like that. Well, mainly Squirrel Girl and Ms. Marvel, which is weird because even though he is an unusual, he isn't the white male character that you normally see at the forefront of a book. He's also not a teenage.
Well, he is white.
Girl. Yeah.
So he is. Oh, no, that's true. He is white. He has a disability in that he can't text. That's something that's very funny in it. Did you get Did you catch the little Easter egg, the little Spider-Man Easter egg when Spider-Man's walking away? There's an homage to a really famous Spider-Man cover.
Was it the No More Spider-Man?
It's exactly that. I really liked it. I know what you guys mean. It didn't feel as different, especially when you're talking about books like Silver Surfer, and we're also talking about a world that's got Squirrel Girl, which I keep mentioning, and Ms. Marvel. All of those books are so unusual, and this almost feels like the most normal of all of those books.
But that's not a bad thing. I have to interrupt you there, I'm sorry. But I think it's nice. It was very good until they got... So, sorry, spoiler alert. But they get to space. He gets into space. And that sort of ruined it for me because I kind of really liked the pedestrian, almost dealing with sort of everyday problems, which is what I liked about She-Hulk. Yeah, that was fun. Sorry, you just pointed out the Spider-Man panel for me. I really liked this, I'm living in a real world, let me adapt to this real world sort of thing, because I prefer that a little bit more, and it really worked well with She-Hulk. But then that's clearly not where this book was going.
Well, I think it might get back there.
I think it will, and I hope it will.
I think what we're about, what's maybe happening there is the introduction that a lot of people have had to that character, or the reintroduction a lot of people have had to that character, is the Guardians of the Galaxy thing. So,
which is why I was like, okay, that was it was expected, but I didn't want it to go there.
Or maybe not in the first issue.
Yeah, exactly.
I wondered if that was just the format of the book is going to be basically, because the first issue effectively goes full circle.
Yeah, with him going back to jail essentially. Yeah. But it doesn't matter why. We don't know why.
I'm going to cut the bits that seem too much like spoilers.
What I quite like is...
I'll make us seem more competent.
What I quite like is that maybe the format is going to be that each issue they just put him into a different situation with a different character from the Marvel Universe. That's what they did for various bits of the original run, and it works.
I don't want that though, because I don't want that. If he's gonna if he's gonna have a solo title, I expect him to pop up in other things anyway, which is why I don't want them to do like, and this week we're gonna have him do this. Isn't that funny and shenanigans? It's like I wouldn't want that to happen, which is why I don't want him to go to space. Stay on Earth.
Well, you're immediately fucked then aren't you? Because it happens.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I really like the art. I think I really like Chip Zdarsky's art. So whenever he's doing something that isn't his, that he isn't drawing, well, I say whenever, I think this is the first time I've ever seen it happen, I'm a little bit disappointed because I really like his art. But Joe Quinones' art is beautiful. I actually got the Skottie Young cover, but I think the main cover was the Joe Quinones one, and it's gorgeous. Rico Renzi's, and it's like really crisp and cartoony. So it even though it looks really different, it's completely different from Chip Zdarsky's own art. It's kind of, they complement each other quite nicely.
I know exactly what it reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
It reminds you of Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all, because I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and so much love for that film. And especially with the hat and the tired and the look on his face, and like a really, like, I have to do this now. Like, it's great. I love it. And with the backdrop of the superheroes. He's
way more, so that film, I always forget, it's a period piece, isn't it? It's set in the, 30s?
Yeah, there.
And Howard the Duck isn't just weird, he feels out of time as well. He refers to everyone as doll, all the women as doll, and stuff like that.
Don't call me doll again,
I can definitely see that. And he looks a bit like Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
Or Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito is my guy.
They're practically the same. I think Bob Hoskins is literally about a foot taller. Was literally about a foot taller. I don't know. So you guys really aren't sure about it? John seems to like it.
I liked it. No, I liked it.
It was good.
There were hang-ups, but I like it so far, and hopefully it will only take one issue for him to come back.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Okay then. Right. Okay, I've got a few other comics that I bought this week. So, Mouse Guard, Legends of the Guard, a beautiful. It's issue 1 of 4 from Archaea, who are now an imprint of Boom Studios, or a partner of Boom Studios. It's apparently the 3rd volume of Legends of the Guard. It's like a Mouse Guard. Mouse Guard is a really long-running comic by David Petersen, but this is like Tales of, where he gets other artists and writers to do stuff. The presentation of all of the Mouse Guard stuff is beautiful in that it's this lovely square-bound format that you don't see anywhere else. It also doesn't fit in comic bags. But, that's my problem. It is not a problem with the format. It does make for really nice collected books as well, I think. I think they always do. Archaea always, the centrepiece of their free comic book day stuff is always a book that has Mouse Guard in it. It's always this lovely hardcover, I think, isn't it?
I think that's why there's always a queue around the block whenever it's free comic book days. Everyone's going, I want the Mouse Guard book. I've not really experienced this world before. It's cute. It's not the sort of thing I'm finding more and more I'm reading fantasy comics, but I think that's just because there are some really good ones around at the moment. They're all mice. It's very cute, and the framing device is that they're all in a tavern, and basically because a whole bunch of them aren't paid up on their bill, the owner of the tavern says, well, okay, you all have to tell me stories, and the best one, they get their stuff, they get their
stay paid for and their tab paid for. Everyone else has to pay me within a week. So that's the framing device for all the stories. David Petersen's framing is lovely. His art is absolutely gorgeous, really crisp. It looks like woodcuts. The stories themselves they're not, for the most part, they're not even really stories. They're more like vignettes. Some of them are only a couple of pages long. They're more like sort of gotcha set up and then conclusion that makes a point, which sounds dismissive. It isn't really. It's just not entirely what I was expecting. The first one's by Mark Buckingham, art and story by Mark Buckingham, colours by Lee Loughridge, and he's just an amazing artist. And from Fables, from his work on Fables, you can see that he'd be able to do like anthropomorphic animal comics really well, and he does in this. There's a strip by Skottie Young as well, which is really gorgeous, really super stylized. It's one of those really light stories about a father talking to a son, and that's quite beautiful as well. And then the final story is called The Armour Maker, and that's art and story by Hannah Christenson. It's the only art that I haven't seen before, I think, unless it's possible that she did one of the Storyteller issues recently. And that's gorgeous. That's a slightly denser story. There's more of it, and it's got more of an act structure to it. It's a really nice sort of fairy tale-esque, fantasy-esque collection. It's not like a storybook, though. It's not exactly what you'd expect if you were picking up something for a kid. It's not necessarily kid-friendly, not because the content is wrong, but just because the stories are more nuanced than they are actual fairy tales or anything like that. To be fair, it never promises fairy tales. It's more like the sort of stories like grown-ups would swap with each other and stuff like that. It's really good, though. It's very pretty, and that is pretty seems. It's almost like saying, "Oh, it's nice," but it is a gorgeous-looking book. It's $3.99, and it's actually a really thick, dense. It feels like you're getting a lot for your money as well. I really like that. Also, Southern Cross, written by Becky Cloonan with art by Andy Belanger and colours by Lee Loughridge. This is at the moment, it's looking like a relatively hard sci-fi, contemporary sci-fi story about a girl who's going to try and her sister was on Titan, it's Jupiter's moon. Mm-hmm. Working for a corporation there and has died, and she's travelling there in like her cover story is that she's going there to collect the remains of her sister, and she is, but she also wants to find out why her sister died, because although it's a really dangerous colony, it's like a mining colony or something like that, her sister was an administrator, and the company that's mining there is really corrupt, so she wants to go and find out about that. And so she's like her sister was the really straight-laced one. She's been in and out of trouble with the law and stuff like that. We find that out very quickly. It felt the ship that she is travelling to Titan on is called the Southern Cross, and it feels like where she thinks the story is going to start is when she gets to Titan and starts looking into her sister's death. But it's going to take weeks to get to Titan on this ship. And what we're finding out, what's basically happening on this ship, it turns out there are this spaceship is mainly just used to ferry stuff, to ferry workers backwards and forwards from Titan. So she's finding out that people on this ship knew about her sister, but there's also she's seeing things and she's starting to hallucinate. She thinks it's unclear whether this is something she suffered from before or whether it's something that's happening on the ship, and it does seem like the actual engine of the ship might play into this somehow. She meets the crew of the ship, she meets the person who's investigating her sister's death, and so it feels like it might be quite a claustrophobic shipboard science fiction mystery, which would be quite interesting. Becky Cloonan's writing's really great. Again, it's interesting talking about Howard the Duck as well. Becky Cloonan's the sort of comic creator. I really like to see her art, and the stuff that she writes and draws is gorgeous. Andy Bellanger's art, though, does look kind of similar to hers. There's really bold lines, and the way he draws faces is quite similar. So it doesn't feel like that much of a stretch. There's some page construction that's really nice as well, though, and some storytelling, which seems like it'd probably be more something. It doesn't look like Becky Cloonan storytelling necessarily. And there's really bold and rich colours. You really feel it really feels claustrophobic, like you're on this ship. So it's a pretty nice first issue. That is a variant cover that doesn't have the price on the back, so that's helpful.
$2.99.
Was it a $2.99 book? Thank you.
It's Image.
Thank you, John. Some of the Image books aren't $2.99.
$3.50 is Sex Criminals, but I've not seen any for $3.99.
No, $3.50 is as high as they go, I think, unless it's variant covers.
This one's $3.50 as well, my next one. I didn't know that this was coming out, and it's probably because I'm not paying enough attention generally. It's called The Surface. It's written by Allred. Am I pronouncing that right?
Allred, yeah, that's what I thought.
It's probably near enough. Drawn by Langdon Foss with colours by Jordie Belaire and letters by Clayton Cowles. It's kind of rare that a month goes by where I don't get a book that's coloured by Jordie Belaire.
I was going to say,
she does a lot of books.
Yeah, and nearly all of them are amazing, though.
Yeah, I was going to say she does a very, very good job.
This is such an unusual book. So it's set in the future. It's actually set in a future that doesn't feel that different from the future in Brian K. Vaughan's Private Eye comic. They're actually completely different, but it feels like a post-internet, post-privacy future. So we're at a point where everyone has got so used to sharing everything online, to settings. It's like settings slowly being default to sharing everything, to the point where everyone's having everything they do logged at all times, and everyone's kind of cool with it. And then we're at a point where the newest generation, the teens and early 20s people, their big rebellion is switching off their live log, it's called, and going off record, basically. That's a very small part of it. One thing about this book is there are lots of ideas, and they all come at you quite quickly and quite seamlessly as well. The other big idea in this is one that I've heard Warren Ellis talking about, and it's one that you hear quite a lot in science fiction now and in science now, and that's that our world is like a flat surface hologram, and there are other layers of reality underneath us and above us, and what we're seeing is our perception is a very thin layer of reality, and our universe is actually much more complicated. So it's a really big and complicated and hard and beefy idea, which lots of really good writers have tried to get across.
Struggled with a lot.
Yeah, and to varying levels of, quite often it ends up, the point at which I get lost in it is when they say, what if our reality is just the flat surface on a,
Yeah.
Grant Morrison talks about it a lot, actually.
Yeah. Grant Morrison literally puts it in a lot as well, all the time.
So that's the other big idea in this. So we've got the president of this world, or certainly the part of this world that we know, and his son is one of the most famous hackers in this world, and he's in a relationship with his two friends. They're in sort of a trio, and there's a reference quite early on. There's loads of extra material in this book. There's loads of prose in it. There's an interview intercut in it with Allred that's actually, one page of it is slap bang in the middle of the comic and clearly intended to be read as part of the text, and he's talking about the experience of working on this comic. The second part, the next part of it is later on. There's loads of that meta fuckery going on in there, which makes it a really sort of dense read. But yeah, so the main protagonists are these three kids, I guess they're early 20s, who decide to go out of the city and go and try and track down this theory, this myth about the nature of reality, which sounds really abstract. And is really abstract, and it's treated as really abstract. There's lots of conversation between characters trying to wrestle with these ideas. The different characters all have different opinions about these ideas, and so you're getting lots of different viewpoints onto it. Meanwhile, it seems like people from the city might be coming to find them at some point. So that's kind of the external threat in among all of this weirdness. And what's interesting about it is that Foss's art is really crisp and really real and really grounded while drawing all of this weird stuff. The nearest comparison I can make to it is Transmetropolitan, is Derek Robinson's art on that, because the stuff he's having to draw in that is really big and idea heavy, and also at the same time ultimately completely grounded. And so he ends up having to make some really unusual ideas. Transmetropolitan is referenced in this book. Actually within the text of it, Fly to Jerusalem is referenced. I'm not doing a very good job of talking about this book.
It sounds amazing. I'm actually regretting not getting it today because I did see it.
It feels like an incredibly personal work. What's interesting, and I think I can't recommend it to people. I literally can't recommend it because it is so self-indulgent, and I think and I don't mean that as a negative, but I think that's going to take some people out of it. The interview sections with the author suggest that bring in this layer of doubt and insecurity into the actual text of the thing that I think will just probably annoy a lot of people, but that I think are fucking amazing. When we see this stuff, it's normally someone like Grant Morrison, and even if you kind of know enough about Grant Morrison to know how infused he is into the work, it's always very sure and very confident, and you never get this sense. Grant Morrison never lets you think that he is the author. It is remotely wobbly. The craft is really clear. Scott is working through stuff with this, and he admits it. And I've loved everything I've read by him so far. Like Zero was great and weird. His Secret Avengers was great. But nothing he's written so far has felt as much like a conversation where he's speaking directly at the reader than this does. And I don't know if that's necessarily that commercial an idea, but it works really well. There is plenty of story here. There is definitely a weird science fiction-y core to it. We do have protagonists. We do have the external forces coming after them. That is going to make enough story. There is a whole sequence where they're doing a bit of mountain climbing. That sounds condescending. Where they're doing mountain climbing, and as beautifully crafted and as beautifully drawn and coloured as all of that is, I'm talking about all of this high-minded stuff, but you are worrying about these characters in this situation. So it's not completely a mindfuck. I didn't feel confused with this the way I did with Intersect, Ray Falk's Intersect, the first issue of that I read recently, which is very surreal. Foss's art grounds this in a way that I don't know if Scott could have done this with a different, a more surreal artist. And it's the first comic I've read in a really long time that I think I'm going to reread like before the second issue comes out, because there are so many books coming out all the time and so many other things. I hardly reread anything anymore, but I feel like there's a lot in this. It's going to make a great companion piece to the Grant Morrison Chris Burnham book that's coming out at the moment. Nameless.
Yeah.
They're completely different, but they're a similar mix of ideas and beautiful, clear storytelling. But this feels really personal. It feels personal to the extent that L. Scott says in his interview piece that he's not even sure how he feels about it anymore, which that's about as personal as it can get. Anyone can say, I felt really strongly about this book and I stand by it, but being uncertain about what it even means, that's totally my sort of thing.
It sounds like it's going to be a journey.
Yeah.
I really want to pick up the book now. I'm off to Forbidden Planet tomorrow.
gorgeous cover, great looking book, and the other thing when I say that it feels like he's talking to the reader, that when you read it, there are a couple of bits where the narrator, because there's a narrator in it as well, where the narrator actually does talk to the reader, and where the comic itself talks to the reader. So it sounds like that's what I'm talking about, but no, that's even more crunchy sort of little flourishes.
So meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's the whole thing with the fourth wall, and comics don't really treat the fourth wall as something to be broken as they do to be smashed down with a wrecking ball and kicked all over the floor.
Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't get the same amount of respect that it should. It's usually used in like a haha, he talked to like in a jokey way usually. It's for comedic effect nowadays, I found.
But that's one of the reasons I actually quite like comics, and this whole idea you say about the sort of surface, which I think is just the whole sort of the world is a three-dimensional construct of a four-dimensional space, and it's like comics are actually, I think, the best way to kind of try and explain that theory, because you have both words and images. So, and I know that like film can try and do it, but film very often, I think,
it's too narrative based.
It misses, it kind of misses, like it's too focused on telling you the story, whereas comics very often are just like, right, we're gonna leave you, like they don't always lead you by the hand, or they'll lead you by the hand to a certain point, go right, here you are, and then they'll just fuck off and leave you somewhere, and you'll be stood there going, well, what am I meant to think? And that's the point. You're meant to figure that out for yourself.
See, I hate to bring this up, but it reminds me of Prometheus. I'm sorry to bring this up, but only because it poses so many ideas, and Prometheus doesn't ever give you the answers or ever lead you to a speculation or anything, whereas this seems like it's actually completing that part of unfulfilled want that I had in Prometheus.
I see what you mean. I was
only because I'm just thinking about posing massive ideas and then not having payoff. I'm very excited about this book though. Now that you've talked about it,
I really like it. I mean, again, I don't know if it will pay off, but it's. But I mean, no. I don't think that's the point of it. And that's really the sort of thing I like. I really like, and I think part of the thing is reading everything Cott says about the way stories should be. Just entirely confirms my biases about it, but it's not what a lot of people like, and it's not that commercially viable. But you can't do one reason is that I think comics do this, to speak to what John said, actually, part of it is that you can get away with it because of the form, the way it works, just what comics are. But a big part of it is that even though commerce is a part of comics, and it isn't, not anyone can just put out a comic. Anyone can do a webcomic pretty much, but not anyone can just put out a comic. Even with Image and Image's deal, you still have to get buy-in from someone who's going to think it's viable, that it's going to be worth printing. Compared to film, and to a lesser extent TV, it's way easier to do something edgy that might not sell in comics. Because once you've got a budget to do anything in film, you've got a lot of money and people invested in what you're doing in a way that you just don't have in comics. So it has to do well. It has to do relatively well. Yeah. And even with TV, that happens as well. So.
Yeah, and in comics, you can throw these ideas out. Someone might grab onto it. You're not set up for changing everyone. You might just get to that one person.
Yeah.
Or a few.
Although ideally you will get to more people than that, I guess. Something that Allred says in this at some point is that there's some TV and film stuff that might be going off, alongside the Kelly Sue DeConnick, Matt Fraction news from the other week, and the fact that Warren Ellis is working on the pilot. On the one hand, it's quite interesting. On the other hand, it's just TV and film working out that comic films do okay and trying to get in on the next big thing.
Yeah, trying to get as edgy as...
farm us.
Yeah, I mean...
We were OGs.
Sorry, you were going to say something, Jim?
No, it was just about the fact that I think TV in a certain way does lend itself well because you've got longer to tell the story. You've got the ability to put more into it. I worry slightly about the Sex Criminals TV show in that I don't know if they'll be able to make it quite as interesting as Sex Criminals is. Yeah, intimate's actually probably the best way.
Weird and also rude.
I'm thinking of the art. I cannot imagine how they're going to translate Chip Zdarsky's art into film.
They just won't. They'll just cut him out of the deal completely.
It fucking sucks because, like, that's what makes Sex Criminals great. Every time they talk about, like anything, to be fair, they do, like, displays of, like, or, like, images of vaginas, for example, or, like a massive backdrop of dildos or something, anything they're talking about.
God, if we like Chip Zdarsky so much, why don't we just fucking marry him?
If he's offering, I'll...
anyone?
He pretty much is. That's like a weekly thing.
I'll do a timeshare with you.
Yeah, okay, we'll go for that. And then Grant Morrison will split that 50-50, yeah.
Grant Morrison will split?
Split.
Okay,
Split.
I thought we were getting into some kinks.
Split 50-50 between me and John.
Amy is rewatching the L Word at the moment. If they want to make Sex Criminals actually explicit, they can. Loads of TV.
It's not about just explicit. That's what I'm worried about. That they're gonna make it too explicit and then miss the point of Sex Criminals, because Sex Criminals is really light and can, like, really funny. Well, at times, and it's intended to be, but I feel like if they make it really explicit, they'll make it more sexy and, like, sex-based. If you is anyone understanding me?
No, I get where you're coming from, and I agree with you. I think also another part of the thing that concerns me with the Sex Criminals TV show is the fact that a large chunk of the story is effectively a criticism of the American mental health system. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that will come across on TV. Part of the thing with comics that also makes them such a good storytelling medium is that a lot of the time people, the mainstream as a whole, just don't pay attention to what they're really saying. And it's why things like, I don't know, Dogma, when it was released, had Catholics picketing cinemas and basically going nuts.
But Preacher doesn't.
Yeah, none of them were picketing comic shops for having Preacher. It is like... Comics can get away with a lot more, and you can. And that's the thing with Sex Criminals. Some of the points that Matt Fraction makes in it are really, really sort of like quite heavy critiques, and that's the things I really like about it, is the heart of it.
This just shows how different we all are, because you two are worrying about a show that I didn't even realise was happening. I knew that they had a deal to do some.
I'm worrying now that I think about it. That's the problem. I'm worrying now.
But I didn't know that there was even I didn't know that they were talking about a Sex Criminals show.
I don't know if it's Sex Criminals. I know that Kelly Sue and Matt Fraction have a TV deal, and everyone's
Sex Criminals is the first.
Yeah,
on the
and
list.
that's the bets are placed on that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. I feel very warm.
You look very hot. Get
you.
it? Oh, nice.
Very kind of you. John, have you got anything to... Neither of you have said anything about my haircut or my beard.
Oh, yes, it's shorter.
You've got a beard. And
yes.
You might have had a haircut. I can't tell. You've got fucking headphones on.
My wife asked me to have a haircut for the birth of our second child.
Is that so you don't scare her when it comes out?
Yes, and so I told her I was going to get one yesterday, and I got one yesterday, and apparently I asked the lady to tidy it up, and she literally just tidied it up. So I noticed that it had been changed. But the hair is debatable. I can definitely tell by the beard. It looks very concise. I mean, it isn't actually debatable. I definitely had a haircut, and there was definitely hair on the floor. I know it's debatable whether it's noticeable. Okay, no, I think you're right. Final comic thing. I will always, if people want to talk about comics, I will always happily talk to people about comics, and it's so rare that I will always respond and encourage it. But if you go into Starbucks and you see someone who has their earphones in and is reading comics with a little notepad, what would you normally do? I would be like, oh, that's good for him. You wouldn't go and sit opposite them and then just start engaging them in conversation? No, but I wouldn't
I don't talk to people, so you know how I'm
the headphones are kind of a giveaway that maybe you don't want someone to speak to you.
Plugs, so I don't know. Maybe she didn't see them or thought they were a hearing aid. She was. I mean, there's a lovely lady. The other problem is though that and no one really ever seems to believe this when I say it, but it's weird that I seem to draw people. That people look at me from a distance and think he's a guy who I can happily strike a conversation up with because I am so shy and socially awkward.
You're so approachable, though, I found.
But I mean, that's the thing. Maybe I am. But I spent the whole time thinking, well, I don't understand. Am I supposed to talk back? If it looks like the conversation's dying, is she going to be offended if I just let it die and carry on? So there were actual points where I wanted this woman to stop talking to me so that I could read my comics.
Well,
then I carried the conversation on because I felt like she was gonna. I just don't like talking to people.
See, unlike you, I have a resting fucking bitch face, so people are never gonna approach me.
A resting bitch face.
Yeah, every time anyone ever comes around, they're like, "Are you okay?" Yeah. Oh, you seem so upset. You seem quite angry.
What does John's resting face say? No, relax.
Confused.
Perplexed.
Yeah, usually confused. It's like the Joey Tribbiani thing from Friends, where you just try and multiply two really large numbers in your head. That's pretty much my resting face.
Okay, listener, you can listen to all of our previous episodes at wehaveissues.net. You can also subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice. We're all on Twitter. Some of us are on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Nick Sight. John's
on Twitter at John Momb
with no H. And Jessie's?
I'm Deadpool's gal.
That's the I'm is part of it.
Yeah, sadly.
She's I'm the way that it would be clearer if you said that, Jessie, is if you said I'm Deadpool's gal.
Yeah. The lawsuit's still going on. I'll get that changed.
Okay, good. The podcast's Twitter account is IssuesPod. We are on Tumblr. We're also on Facebook. I think we're on Google+. I haven't been to Google+ in a really long time. But yes. But apparently it's really good to finish a podcast or any entertainment thing, magazine type show with a question. Question, listener, what is your resting face like? Tweet at us or tell us on Facebook. Or
send us a picture of your resting face.
Or just shout, Yes, do that. You can do that actually to issuespod@gmail.com. That's the email account. And that's us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.